For this program, you're going to pick one exercise per muscle group and you're going to increase your reps or weight each workout. Here's an example of some exercises I recommend and the sequence you should perform them in. Push 1, chest, dumbbell bench. Shoulders, one arm cable lateral raise. Triceps, one arm overhead cable extensions. Traps, plate raises. Then we move on to pull 1, upper back chest supported row. Lats, a one arm lat pull down. Biceps, a leaning one arm cable curl, followed by rear delts, which should be rear delt rows. And then for legs 1, we have quads, something like a hack squat, anything that's going to target the quads directly, hamstring, seated leg curl, glutes, a glute bridge, and then calves, a calf raise. Then finally, we're moving on to push 2, shoulders, seated dumbbell press, chest, incline dumbbell bench, triceps, crossbody cable extensions, traps, high incline dumbbell rows. For pull 2, we'll start off with lats, low cable lat row, upper back would be an upper back pull down, biceps, one arm cable preacher curls, rear delts, crossbody rear delt rows. And then finally with legs 2, we have hamstrings first, starting with the trap bar stiff legged deadlift, quads, a leg extension, glutes, hip thrust, calves, seated calf raises. From this setup, you can see that each training day is broken up into one exercise for each muscle group. No more, no less. You don't need to do 20 different exercises for each muscle group after all. You need to make sure that you're using the right exercises to bias the muscle you're trying to work. If you're trying to train quads, using a low bar squat and setting the hips back really far like in powerlifting isn't a great idea. Instead, you would use something like a hack squat with a narrow stance and your feet low on the platform. Doing this is going to maximize your stability and allow you to get more knee flexion, which is how you train the quads effectively. Imagine that. Adding on to this, to maximize your training and ensure every muscle gets its focus, you need to make sure you're training each head of a muscle group. An example of this is that I have a dumbbell bench for the sternal head of the pec, and I also have a dumbbell incline bench for the clavicular head. For the biceps, I have an exercise for the short as well as the long head. Shoulders have one exercise for the anterior and the medial delts, and they actually have 2 for the rear delts, as they're usually a huge weak point for most people. There's much more thought that goes into it than this, so definitely let me know if you want me to go more in depth on this in another video. Your volume and intensity are going to determine how well you recover and ultimately how fast you progress. The faster you can progress in weight and reps while also allowing for recovery, the better your muscle gains are going to be. Since you're going to be training 6 days per week, you need to keep your volume as low as possible. And with your volume low, you need to make sure that you're pushing your intensity for muscular adaptations to occur. Here's what I recommend for sets and reps on the 6-day workout routine. As I mentioned before, we need to keep the volume low and the intensity high. This is simply due to the fact that you can't push your volume, intensity, and frequency into the red all at the same time. You need to back something off, otherwise injuries are going to occur, and you're just going to be wasting your time in the long run. On a lower frequency plan, I recommend between 1 to 3 sets per exercise, but in this case, 1 to 2 sets is going to be your absolute maximum. Keep the volume low, and I think you'll be surprised by the progress you made using this workout plan. As for the rep ranges you should be using, less is more. Anywhere between 6 to 12 reps is going to be best for the majority of your sets. This gives you just enough effective reps to drive muscle growth, but it's not so heavy your joints are going to take a beating. You can definitely work into the 12 to 20 rep range for smaller muscle groups, but honestly, any more than that's going to be pushing it. You can gain the same amount of muscle in all these rep ranges, but heavier reps under 5 will beat you up training to failure. Finally, for intensity, we want to push all movements with a high degree of stability to complete muscular failure. For movements with less stability and a lot of moving parts, such as Romanian deadlifts and squats, 1 rep away from failure works perfectly. Basically, if you can stabilize well, you can train to failure safely without worrying about form breaking down and causing injury. If you can't stabilize as well, your form is going to break down long before you ever get to failure. So form failure is what I recommend for those types of movements. And finally, as always, progressive overload is key. All in all, this is a very simple concept. To cause muscle growth to occur, you need to get a reason to adapt and get bigger and stronger. Doing more reps and weight over time while training with the high proximity to failure is all you need to focus on. If you go from 200 for 6 reps to 200 for 12 reps, If you go from 200 for 6 reps to 200 for 12 reps with excellent execution, you're going to build muscle. That's all you need to concern yourself with. Based on these points, the progression for this program is super easy to figure out. Basically, you're going to pick a rep range for your exercise. Say 6 to 12, 12 to 15, 15 to 20. It doesn't really matter. For the bigger exercises, we're using a lot of different muscle groups. Anywhere between 6 to 12 is going to be perfect, and then you can use 12 to 20 for a lot of isolation exercises and movements where you're not going to want to load up your joints as much. You don't need to do 6 reps on a bicep curl usually. With this, you're going to work up to 1 set and you're going to do as many reps as you possibly can. If you do more reps in your prescribed rep range, add weight the following week. If you don't, you're just going to pick that same weight and you try to beat your reps you did the previous week. And you're just going to do this until you can't add weight or reps for a couple of workouts. Switch that extra out for a new one and repeat the process. That's literally all you need to concern yourself with. Fuck doing a million sets with 1,000 reps in the tank. This is just a recipe for wasted effort and time. Push your sets hard, do more reps, add more weight over time, and you're set. This is the number one thing you must do while you're training 6 days per week on this program or any others. This should be obvious, but a lot of people, especially younger trainees, forget the most important thing for muscle growth to occur. You have to eat. I don't mean just a little either. For muscle growth to occur, especially training 6 days per week, you need to make sure you're eating above maintenance level. This is going to fuel your performance and allow you to recover from the high frequency training. A good way to go about this is to take your body weight and multiply it by 15, and then add between 250 to 500 calories on, and just check your weight every 2 weeks, and if you're gaining, then you're good, you're set. While many of you might like the idea of training 6 days per week, it might not be the best plan of attack for most of you. Depending on your lifestyle, career, and even your responsibilities, 6-day training might be too much on top of other stresses in your life. If you add stress on top of stress, something is bound to break eventually. Whether that's mentally exhausting you, emotionally draining you, or just physically beating you down, you need to make sure your training matches your lifestyle. And that's why I think that unless you work something like a desk job where you're sitting down most of the day, 6 days of training per week just isn't sustainable for most. The easier your life is outside the gym, the more you can afford to train, and the opposite is also true. If you're a construction worker or any other profession where you're doing hard labor, 2 to 4 days of training is all you really need. You have to look at your life and training as a whole. You might have all the drive in the world, but eventually you're going to break down. Managing your stress and recovery is one of the most important things you need to do, and if you can't possibly recover in higher frequency training programs such as the one I laid out, that's totally fine. I promise you this, you definitely don't need to train 6 days per week to make substantial progress. 2 to 3 days per week is going to be perfectly fine for those that are working very, very hard jobs, and for those working a sedentary job, you don't have to worry about outside stressors as much. 3 to 5 days is perfectly fine. Some beginners might want to take it slow, and others might want to jump in to make up lost time. As a beginner, you'll make more progress doing the least amount of work than any other time in your life. Think about it. Beginner lifters can go from doing absolutely zero training to doing a couple of easy sets a couple of times per week and make tons of progress. There's no need to go to failure, do a ton of volume, or train 6 days per week. It's just not necessary, and it might even slow down the process of anything. 2 to 3 days of basic lifts, excellent execution on those lifts, adding weight and reps. That's all a beginner really requires to grow and get stronger. 6-day training should only be used by intermediate and advanced lifters for this reason. And if you have to ask if you're either one of those, you're still a beginner. Plain and simple. If you like this video, make sure to like it, subscribe, and let me know what video you want me to make next. Until next time.